Insurance agents from around the world, welcome to the Insurance Guys podcast. My name is Scott Howell, your fearless host and leader, insurance agency owner and insurance evangelist for I Protect Insurance and Financial Services, based out of Huntsville, Alabama. And before we get started on today's episode, please help me welcome. He is a 6'3" sophomore from Mobile, Alabama, parade first team All-American, Rivals 5-star recruit. He is a fantastic insurance agent and a great American. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome my friend, Mr. Bradley Flowers. How are you, Bradley?
Well, Scott, we got somebody in the room that's got a little bit of news.
Guys, we have in our room, in our podcast studio today, a man who might be the best videographer in the Southeastern Conference. But more importantly than that, and this has been kind of an ongoing kick the ball down the street for 6 months. So every time I come down, we talk a little bit about it.
Well, let me clarify. Scott's been pestering him about when is he going to propose.
That's true. That's true. That's real talk. I will agree with that. And we, everybody in the insurance industry from about December 15th just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Ever. And really, all Americans are that way. By December 15th, everybody just calls the ball, baby. It's over. Unless you're in retail or, working at a fast food restaurant or something, you're just worthless from about the 15th to the first of the year. And I jump on my once a week for 3 minutes. I jump on Facebook, and the first post I see is our friend, greatest videographer in the Southeastern Conference, is on a bended knee in New York City, and he is proposing to his beautiful fiance. Congratulations, Rand. Yes. I'm giving you a clap on that one, brother. Guys, we've got an all-star guest today. I have had the honor and pleasure in sitting with him, or really behind him, at a Paradiso Mastermind event last and what a beautiful location that was in, too. God, it was so nice. Fantastic mastermind that he and I both got to be a part of last year. I did not know him then. We spoke a few times, but I'll tell you one thing. If there are any other 27-year-old men or women that have achieved more than he has, please, Bradley, book them on the podcast, because this guy right here, folks, is a Rivals 5-star recruit. He is a first-team All-American, and I cannot wait to see him next year. We're going to spend a little bit more time together and get in a boat with each other. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I want to give him the introduction he's always deserved. He is originally from College Station, Texas, and currently resides in College Station, Texas. Born and raised in College Station, Texas. He is married to the beautiful Kate, and he's a graduate of Texas A&M University. He is an Aggie. Like most people, he wanted nothing to do with insurance. Cannot tell you how many people I've talked to who fell off a ladder, tripped and fell into the insurance business. But after graduating from A&M, in less than 3 years, he ended up at the family agency, having to learn and lead people. At 24 years old, he took over as the president of Rollo Insurance. Today, they have over 225 employees and are one of the fastest growing insurance agencies in the state of Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my profound honor today to introduce to you first-time guest on the IGP, but it will not be his last. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Jackson Rollo. How are you, Jackson?
I'm good, man. I see why everybody smiles after you say that, give that introduction, it's good on the receiving end of it. I'll tell you that.
Hey, Jackson,
If you had to hear it 9 times a day like I did.
Yeah,
I'm
you'd be
kidding.
like,
I'm
shut
joking.
up, Scott.
Hey, real quick, touch my jeans.
Okay, yeah. Oh, they're like sweatpants.
So I've been on a search for the last 60 days,
The
Jackson,
perfect
to find
jeans.
Because everybody, or a lot of people know I wear jeans every day.
Sure, yeah.
The perfect pair of jeans.
I thought
and
they were
found
jeans.
these. They are from Faherty. think I said that right.
Faghetto.
Faherty. Faherty. And I'm ashamed of how much money I paid for them.
Oh no,
but
no. You can't put a price on
the
comfort.
Best jeans. Anyway, sorry for the tangent.
You can't put a price.
No, I'm
on
looking
comfort.
that up right now because I'm with you on that.
They're like sweatpants, but I would have bet my next 10 paychecks they were jeans.
Sweatpant material that is cut and stitched like jeans.
Yes,
and they are unfreaking believable.
So basically, Jackson, what we're saying is Bradley showed up today to podcast with you in his jammies.
Yeah.
I'm teasing.
I know, but
here's
the thing. We're the same way at my office. I'm the same way. I used to wear slacks every day. Being so young, I was like, all right, I'm gonna dress nice, and I got sick and tired of wearing slacks. So I went to the Lululemon pants, which they're expensive, but they're worth it. And my team always gets on me about it. So I understand.
Yeah. So let me say this, Jackson. If I wasn't built like the Grinch. Have you ever seen Jim Carrey in The Grinch? He's got the big belly and the skinny legs and the that's me. And then I have little arms like a T-Rex. And then my torso is like, if my legs match my torso, I'd be 6'9". But I can't wear I love Lululemon pants on guys like you and Bradley. I think they look crisp. They look clean. They're super comfortable. On me, they look like, I just swallowed a snake. I'm a snake that just swallowed a raccoon, actually. And my belly flops over them. Then they start falling down, and my shirt
probably get a little bulge too.
100%. Yeah, they're terrible. But on men who are ruggedly handsome like you and Bradley, who don't have diabetes and 17 other diseases and are probably 6 months away from dying, they look fantastic. And so jealous of both of you, but that's just where we are right now. Love Lululemon stuff. I got in an argument last year with my son about whether I buy Lululemon stuff. And I said, I don't buy Lululemon stuff. And he goes, Dad, you've got all kinds of Lululemon. I said, I know that people give them to me as a present, as a gift. Well, this Christmas, before Christmas, like the 15th of December, I went to the Lululemon store with my wife and bought so I had to text my son and say, I lied. Now I'm officially a Lululemon guy.
The problem with Lululemon is I wear a large normally, but in Lululemon, I'm like an XXL.
Mm-hmm.
Because all their stuff is cut so small.
Sure.
You got to work out a lot
fitted.
more to fit in there.
It's fitted.
Yeah.
It's to motivate you.
So Jackson, before we get started on your, career in insurance and how you got in it in Texas A&M, I got so many questions. I do have another Lululemon question for both of you. I've noticed the last year I've been started being a little bougie and buying really expensive underwear. And with that December 15th date, I said I went to Lululemon, bought 4 or 5 pairs of Lululemon underwear, and they are fantastic. They're great, just like everything else with Lululemon. They're wonderful. But I've noticed that when it comes to men's underwear, when you go buy the expensive underwear like Lululemon and some of these others that you buy in these, these specialty stores, you get them out of the pack. And I think I brought a couple pairs with me of Lululemon underwear. They don't have a hole for your stuff. And I'm wondering, why does expensive underwear not have the fly, the open fly when you go to the urinal? I think the last podcast I talked about.
Did you think we were going to talk about this, Jackson?
Yeah. Why does expensive
that wasn't on my bingo card.
Why does expensive underwear not have a hole for your?
Does anybody use that?
I do.
I think you're the only person in America that uses that.
Oh, well, that makes perfect sense. Okay, now I'm gonna get off that. Jackson, I've got so many questions. I want to start with a start though. Number one. Did I pronounce your beautiful wife? I guarantee you he has got a dime for a wife. I guarantee. I would bet you all the money in the world that his wife is drop dead gorgeous.
You're supposed to say that.
And by the way, Rand's fiance might be the next Victoria's Secret runway model. I'm not exaggerating. She is. You want to talk about out punting your coverage? You're screwed, dude. You better go get in the gym. Blushing? Rand, leave, take those headphones off and go to the gym right now. You need to start working out 4 hours a week, and I want you to come back in here and look just like Brad Pitt in Fight Club when he weighed 130 pounds and he had the broad shoulders and the washboard abs. because you have zero chance of keeping that girl very long unless you get in the gym.
Yes,
that girl is seriously, she is a Victoria's Secret model.
I will say his how he proposed was pretty good though.
Yeah, that was solid. His new robe. That was. Yeah. Did I pronounce Kate? Is it Kate or KD? It's Kate, isn't it?
It's Kate. Yeah,
perfect.
Kate. Yep.
Thank you. Hey, Kate, we love you on the podcast. Love your husband. Thank you so much for letting him be on the show today. So now I want to move from that to Texas A&M University. I have a secret time for a minute. Nobody's going to hear this. There's only going to be 50,000 insurance agents listening to this, so don't worry about that. You're good. I have always, Bradley, I've never told you this. I've always had this romantic vision since my son was small, since he was a little baby, little mean-ass kid like you've got, of him going to Texas A&M University. I love Texas A&M University. I like what they stand for. I like the military, the military lean to Texas A&M. They've got probably the best stadium atmosphere, all the money, the oil money they've spent on all their facilities are just unbelievable. Tell me what it was like to go and graduate from Texas A&M University, because I've always had this romantic notion of my son graduating from Texas A&M, which probably won't happen, but.
Yeah, whenever you said that, I was thinking he was going to say like, "Oh, this romantic vision of A&M like winning a national championship."
Oh no,
yeah,
that's never going to happen.
You know?
I'm kidding.
No, man, it was good. I will tell you that. I tell kids all the time. I'm big on trying to give back to college students to make them a little smarter than I was. I have a podcast built around that because I think a lot of times you go through school and then you look back and you're like, I would have done that a little bit differently. And that was me. I mean, I'll tell you this: I was a kid who walked around campus, headphones on all day long.
By the way, please tell me you're recruiting out of tech. So I got a friend, Kelly Miller, in Oklahoma. Shout out to Kelly. Big, huge Oklahoma State supporter, booster, big fraternity guy at Oklahoma State. Now he's about my age, and he recruits all of his people out of Oklahoma State University. So please tell me you're following suit and recruiting a lot of your people out of Texas A&M.
We do have a lot of Aggies. Yes, a lot of Aggies. So
yes.
We're sponsors here of TexAgs, which is like the local 24/7 forum board. We have our own branded one, and we get a lot of recruits out of that. So it's a good network. It's a great community. I love the university like you. They stand for the right things, or traditionally they have. And they do things the right way. Now, do I wish they won more on the football field? Yes, of course, like everyone else. I wish my team was Alabama back 5 years ago. But it's a good school, and it's basketball season, so that's good for us right now. We're 11-3 or something like that, so pretty good.
So secret time again. You just triggered Bradley Flowers. There are Jewish people who died in the Holocaust that hate Hitler less than Bradley Flowers hates Alabama, University of Alabama. He and I, let's power of 7 sons. You don't like Alabama. I'm a little more whatever, but he and I are both Auburn fans. Now Auburn has had #1 basketball team in the nation. Now I believe they're still #1 in the nation.
Somebody asked me this weekend. We were in Nashville. They said, "Would you rather have it be like it is now, or Alabama loses every game they ever play, but Auburn also loses every game they ever play?" And I immediately said option B.
So I was about to ask you.
Auburn's already losing every game they play. So, it's,
Here was my question similar to that. If the University of Alabama played the University of Iraq in football, who would you pull for?
Iraq.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I don't. It's just.
Yeah.
I'm the worst fan, Jackson, because I don't follow recruiting. I don't pay any attention to it during the off season.
Right.
I watch the games and I scream at the TV. I don't know any of the players' names, and I hate Alabama more than I like Auburn.
I would say a lot of Auburn fans are that way.
It's just the way it is. And I hate to tell you guys listen to this, but the dynasty's over. Like it is what they dealt
Jackson,
with
we triggered him. We triggered
what they
him.
dealt with this year. This is your new reality. All you guys listening to this that are younger than 35 years old, you're trust fund fans. You don't remember what it's like to. This would have been a good season 20 years ago.
Oh yeah,
30 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And you don't know what it's like. You go to a game there and it's like a business meeting. It's the process.
You know
it's the
what's
next
strange?
thing to the thing,
You
right?
know what's strange though about this? I will say this: my whole family, most of my family, except my dad and I, are Alabama fans. My sister was a majorette at Alabama for 4 years. She got all the brains and the looks in the family, and big high-powered attorney, one of the top in the country. But Alabama, my wife is a huge Alabama fan. Alabama fans feel the same way that Bradley does, but not about Auburn. Alabama fans would pull if Tennessee is their Auburn. Alabama fans would pull for Iraq every day of the week versus Tennessee. They hate Tennessee. It's almost like Auburn's just little brother to them. But Tennessee, oh my gosh, I've never seen people hate a college like Alabama fans hate Tennessee. It's weird. It's kind of strange that way. But anyway,
let's get on to insurance.
Here's what I wanted to say, Jackson. You have got to help me out with this. All these cheers that you guys do at Texas A&M. Talk a little bit about, like, when you were a freshman there, don't you guys, this is just me, outsider looking in, but like, is part of freshman orientation at Texas A&M, all the freshmen go to the stadium and you have to learn all the cheers because they're so different from anything I've ever seen. Talk a little bit about this. I'm wildly interested in this.
Yeah, so I got to tell you, okay, two things. Number one, this will tell you a little bit about how my brain works. But if my wife would kill me, my wife's the biggest Aggie. I'll tell you right now, I'm a big sports fan, but when it comes to A&M, she's definitely above me in in terms of craziness.
Sure.
But they're yells, not cheers. She would want me to say that because that's a big thing.
Kate,
right?
I'm so sorry. I apologize.
But yes, they do that. Now, I grew up here, right? So I skipped all of that because I was like, I'm not wasting 4 hours of my life on orientation.
You were kind of suitcase college, like you were living at home but going to A&M.
Yeah. So I moved out of the house, right? But I was from here, and so I just knew how most everything went. So, like in my time at A&M, I actually only sat in the student section where you stand up and you do the yells the whole game twice. Both times because my wife made me, because I was much more into the football than the being a student.
Right.
But yes, they do the yells, and a lot of tradition to them. A lot of things about agriculture and things like that based on how A&M was founded, and it's very unique. I always thought it was kind of normal for colleges, and then the more I've seen other schools and traveled around the SEC, everyone has their own traditions, but A&M's are very old, and they stick to them and very values based.
That's unbelievable.
Last thing I'll say is, it's funny how all of a sudden everybody can pay their players, and Alabama and Georgia slid back to the pack.
I told you we triggered him.
It's funny.
He was thinking about that.
I think I'm going to make a prediction. I think either this year or next year, Georgia's slid back. Kirby has proved there what he needed to prove. I think if Alabama thinks they can pick up Kirby, they're going to fire DeBoer either this year or next year and pick up Kirby.
Kind of what I've heard too.
Yeah, that's a prediction, man. So I will tell you this, kind of as we transition, I think, to the business thing. But I listened to the AD here at A&M. Trevor Alberts played in Nebraska back in the day, and it was fascinating to me. He was telling me, like about them spending money on these kids, and from a business perspective, we think about it as more of like the sports. He was like, look, as a business, he's like, here's how this is going to work. I have 20 programs, right? Women's equestrian, women's tennis, men's tennis. And he's like, basically, here's what's going to happen. One of them makes us money. The other 19 lose us money. He's like, we're going to spend all of our money on the one that makes us the most money and basically fend off the lawsuits from the other 19. That's basically how this is going to go, because everyone's going to want the same money, but only one of them makes the money. So it's dynamic right now in college sports. That's for sure.
What's going to happen too, I think, to make another prediction is, I think you're going to start seeing more reasonable coaches' salaries, and at the very least, more reasonable buyouts. You're not going to, I think DeBoer has like a $70 million buyout at Alabama or something like that. I think that those are going to shrink because they're having to give money to NIL.
Right.
And if I'm Kirby, I'm thinking, okay, this is my like last chance to get a bag.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway,
could happen.
Speaking of bags, let's
Jackson,
transition over to
Jackson.
insurance.
I want to know this. You graduate from A&M and you seem like a guy that always has a plan. You seem like a buttoned up guy that's going to have a plan. Now, I've read your bio and you had a pretty straightforward plan. It was graduate from A&M, go to Stanford, go to law school, and then you wanted to go to a corporate attorney position with somebody like an Apple. But somewhere along the way, you tripped on the sidewalk, fell down, dropped your book bag, and the next thing you know, you woke up and you're in the family agency. So get in my DeLorean for just a minute. Go back to your time at A&M as you're finishing up there. Dad had, I believe it was your father, had started a small family agency at some point. No, I'm guessing if I was a betting man, I'd say back in the 80s, early 80s, something to that effect. How did you go from having this clear-cut path to where you wanted to be to being the president of the family Rollo agency at 24 years old?
Yeah, so my dad started the agency in 2000. So he's young. He's only 50, just turned 50 for most agency principals.
Absolutely.
And my goal was, like I said, always law school. That was kind of the plan and vision. But really what happened was I went into my advisor's office one semester and was going to pick classes for the next semester. He said, hey, no, you're graduating this summer. You're going to take 2 classes in the summer and you're done. Like, what do you mean I'm done? I got another year left, And so that kind of put everything in perspective, right? I was getting married. I was like, okay, well, I got to get a job during this time period. So, talk to dad, mentor, and was like, hey, what am I going to do? He was like, what do you mean what you're going to do? You're going to come in, you're going to sell some insurance. And that way, at least the family business even after you go to law school. So the plan was always take the LSAT, that year gap I had no matter what. The way law school works, you can only get in the fall. So I knew I had a year no matter what I did before law school started.
Did you take the LSAT?
I didn't. I was so funny story. I was in the LSAT prep as I started selling my last semester of college. My parents kept me incredibly broke during school, so I started selling some policies, and I was like, man, I'm rich. I can play golf. This is awesome. So
got a little money every time you check the checking account. You're like, damn, I don't have to worry about money today.
Yeah, it was awesome. So I got into that, and then I think just learning from other people around me. I think the breakfast I still remember as to when I fully made up my mind I'm not going to law school. I was sitting there talking to my dad, and I was weighing pretty heavily staying in the business. I had already gotten invited in. I sat in a couple of C-suite meetings, and I learned what like actually business was versus what they teach you in school, right? And how every decision is a big decision in a small family business. And we were sitting there, and he said, Jackson, he said, you can always hire attorneys. He's like, but you can't always run a business.
That's right.
And that was the one that got me. So I decided to stay in the family agency and gave up the law school aspirations and have never looked back.
So question for you. You take over as president at 24 years old, which is crazy
and how
to think about.
How many employees were you guys at that time?
Yeah, so when I started in 2019, I was a producer for about 8 months, took over as director of sales at 22. And so I led the sales team for 2 years first. But we were probably pushing about 100 people on the team total whenever I got
so you've more than doubled in size since then.
We've been growing a lot.
So what was the thing? I'm going to guess that your relationship with your dad must be a good one. Like y'all must have a really good relationship, and you're blessed and he's blessed. There's episode Landman that came out yesterday, and Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys, is in the hospital room. Have you seen this?
Mm-mm.
Okay, you need to go watch it. It's all over TikTok if you just want to watch that scene. But he talks about how the greatest achievement of his life has been being able to work with his kids, and it's just a fantastic scene. But obviously, you and your dad are both blessed to get to work together. And that's something that I am jealous because I've never had that opportunity with my dad. And one day that's going to be one of my biggest regrets. But what happened when you took over as president? Because as a young man, as a 24-year-old, your ideals, you're thinking bigger. you from a technology standpoint, you probably like Bradley. You understand tech a lot better than your dad does, because I'm your dad's age. I'm a little older than him, actually. But was there any headbutting going on at that time of, hey, this is your dad's from the Generation X, so this is how we've always done it, and by God, this is how we're going to do it. You're more of the, hey, Dad, I think if we just tweaked this, did this, added this, did some automations, da-da-da-da-da. Was there any headbutting that went on there?
Yes is the answer, right? But I will tell you this, me and him, we have a fantastic relationship.
Yep.
Definitely my number one mentor in my life, still involved in the business. He's still the CEO. But he has been a visionary like his whole life. And, so he's not one of those traditional agency owners who was kind of stuck in his ways. I mean, he was moving to, multiple monitors back in the day before it was popular, because he read about the efficiency of it. So he was always adapting that. But, being cool. Younger, I did have some different visions for different things. And I think early on when we were, both challenging for which idea was better, we would butt heads. But the cool thing is we could fight for 5-6 hours in a C-suite meeting. It ends, we say, hey, where are we going to dinner? I'll go grab Kate, you go grab Mom, let's go to dinner, right? So awesome. It never interfered with the father-son relationship.
Yeah.
But now I think we found a rhythm, right? It's taken us 5 years to really get in the rhythm we're in now. But now I think we both are understanding each other's strengths and weaknesses and how we can develop together, and really just, highlighting each other's strengths when we need them, for sure.
So you said something earlier that gave me PTSD. We were talking about the jeans, and you said, being a young guy, I felt like I had to dress up. I did the same thing. When I went to work at Alpha, I was the youngest agent in the company at 22, and pretty much everybody around me had gray hair. And what were the challenges? And I think this is the question our audience really wants to know. Like, what were the challenges when you took over? Because I'm sure you had a lot of, maybe not insecurity, but just worry, like, hey, what are these folks going to think of this young, whippersnapper taking over? Did you get any pushback from the team? And if you did, was it actual pushback or was it perceived pushback? And what was that process like? Because I'm sure that's not the easiest transition in the world.
Yeah, it's funny because looking back now, there's some people who I've asked about it, and they're like, no, we thought your dad was crazy when he made you president at 24. I didn't necessarily notice much of that.
Regardless of who it is. Like, what in the world? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So, here's the thing. I was sitting in C-suite meetings since I was 22. For the first about 2 years, I didn't even talk. I just listened. And I actually love those days because I had no perspective. So they'd be arguing about something. I'd be like, why are you arguing? And they start telling me the reason why they're right. I was like, no. I don't understand the problem. Like you gotta explain the problem to me, because you're using a bunch of words I don't understand. And it's funny, but that perspective, we solved a lot of problems by just asking why, right? And going back to the basic principles of why, and it fixed a lot of things. But the C-suite had seen the stuff I was doing behind the scenes, so they were pretty good with it, which is good because they're the ones who they run the business with me day to day. So I needed their buy-in. But from everyone else, I'll be honest, I wasn't too worried about it because I put all of my effort into it. I mean, the reason that I won Producer of the Year whenever I was here for 8 months, and 4 of those I was an intern. I outsold every producer in our company with 4 less months and 4 of them part-time. And we had good salespeople. We still do. I literally worked all the time. It just was, I stayed up until 3 a.m. and I was back at my office by 9 a.m. And I was, just selling as much as I could. And here's the thing, my dad had been doing it for 20 years. My grandpa's an agency manager with a captive care for 50 years. Wow. And my wife's family owns an independent agency up in Dallas. I had 0 family to insure when I first started. So it was 100% off hustle. Right. And because of that, I knew really early people would buy in. And the other thing is, as soon as I started as director of sales, I had an attitude where I went in person to every office we had. We had 12 at the time. I drove to every one of them and sat down with every producer and asked them 3 questions. I said, Why do you love about Rollo Insurance? What do you hate about it? And if you were me, what would you do to fix it? And they talked for hours, and it was awesome. And I built a spreadsheet, and I took all the common ones and I moved them to the top, and we literally started fixing problems one at a time. And I think after about 2-3 months, they realized, okay, he's willing to listen and fix problems. Yeah, I don't care how old he is. I'll tell him stuff and we'll fix it.
I got a question.
One of the questions I love to ask in one-on-one meetings with employees is, I'm going to wave a magic wand. You are now the CEO. what do you do different?
Yep.
And sometimes you get some great answers. Sometimes you get some not so great answers.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So-
I'm gonna put an arcade machine in the lobby.
Jackson, I gotta ask, when you ask that second question, what do you hate about Rollo Insurance, or what do you not like, or however you pose that question? Was there a common denominator answer that you heard over and over again? What was it? What was it?
Yeah, it was communication. I think it just had to do with the size we got into, and there wasn't a director of sales at that time. I was filling in a void that we were between two directors of sales, and so they felt like they lacked communication, right? And so I said, "Okay, sounds good. We're gonna do a production call every Friday."
What do they mean by that? That's a broad answer. Lack of communication. Was it y'all weren't having enough like Wednesday staff call where everybody could talk about what they were doing, or was it not enough communication between the agents and account managers? What was the specific there?
Yeah, trying to think back, because we've changed so much since then. I think a lot of it had to do with they felt like there were changes that would happen, and they didn't even understand there was a problem, right? It just all of a sudden a memo goes out, hey, we're changing this, and they were caught off guard. So
right, nobody really explained it or.
Yeah. And again, when there's a void in communication, just with a client, right? Like if you don't communicate a renewal to a client, guess what? If the other agent says that you should have communicated, they're leaving you, right? And so the same thing happens with staff members. They just want to know the direction we're going in. And so we started doing a weekly phone call. And after about 6 months of that, they're like, hey, can we please do biweekly? You're talking too much. Like we don't need that much communication,
Exactly.
right? And so we've adapted it since then, but that was the number one thing. And it was just an easy solve with call.
So you move up to the role of president, okay? And you mentioned a few minutes ago that your role as the director of sales, was short-lived tenure. When you went to go hire, or you and your dad were going to hire a director of sales for your organization, did you hire someone from outside the firm? Or was it an internal hire with like the next best salesperson on the team? Which one was it?
Yeah, so it was the second one. We did hire internal.
Okay.
Thankfully, since then, we actually went back and he's now back as a full-time producer because that's where he wanted to be.
Sure.
And he's fantastic at it. And he did a great job in the year he was here. He made some changes that are good and critical, but I actually lead day to day. I lead the sales and marketing team again. So I still oversee all that as well as my president role. We are on a self-adopted, self-created version of EOS that I built out. And so my main role as the president is kind of like that integrator role / a little bit of visionary in there.
Right.
I do that. And then I also have times and parts of the day where I'm doing the sales and marketing team as well.
So I had a question for you and Bradley, and it's not really a question. It's more of a Bradley on a few podcasts that we've done, more than a few, over the last year or two, and then you've done it as well today, have mentioned the term C-suite executive or C-suite meeting or something to that effect. And I was hoping, Bradley, because I guarantee you there's somebody listening to this podcast right now, an agent who's probably like, and I know this is foreign to the two of you, is like, what is a C-suite? What are they talking about, C-suite? What is that? Can you explain to our listening audience, for those that maybe haven't been around business for very long, maybe they just started their agency and they're in a hole somewhere by themselves, so C-suite doesn't even register with them. What is C-suite?
Well, we don't call it C-suite. We just call it leadership team.
Okay.
And so that's our leadership team meetings are our EOS meetings in a nutshell.
And I guess my explanation, and I think about it from the carrier side, right? Because you hear the term C-suite executive on the carrier side quite often. It's one of the people who are in upper management C-suite, meaning they're not the CEO or the president, but they're not far behind. They're somewhere in that management layer of an insurance carrier, and they're called C-suite executives. Am I correct in that? Yeah. Am I right about that, Jackson?
Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of the combination of everyone who has like a C in front of their title, right? The CFO over the financials,
Sure.
the COO over operations, that kind of thing, right? It's a leadership team is all that it is. But
Yeah.
I actually would use that to give my dad the plug I think he deserves, right? Because I walked into an existing C-suite, and it's a small family agency, and we weren't that small actually at the time I took over. We were still pretty large, but he saw the vision of like, hey, if we're going to operate like a big company, right, we need to have that structure in place. And so I think that's pretty cool because, the longer I've been in this business, the more I've seen that difference in how most agencies operate and just kind of the way his mind worked for, we're going to do this like we're a Fortune 500 company, even though we're just, family owned independent agency.
And by the way, I want to give him kudos, Bradley kudos. And two things I want to say. Number one, Bradley, I want to interview his dad.
Okay.
Please. I would love. What's your dad? Is your dad Jackson Sr.?
Jason.
I want to interview Jackson Rollo. I would enjoy that more than anything.
Y'all would get along good.
Number two, I want to give Bradley kudos. And I've been doing a lot of this on the podcast lately because I don't know how much longer I have to live. Bradley Flowers has said this 100 times, and he'll probably say it 100 more times. When he started this agency, he always said, I want to start it and run it like a major, large company, agency, so that, we don't have to play catch up. And I think you've always done a really good job of running your agency, Bradley, kind of like Jackson Rollo did, where let's have the vision and let's start it that way. And that way, if you are ready, you don't have to get ready.
Well, if you look at, the average independent agency in America is $1 million in revenue.
Correct.
And if you look at the reason that is that's where most people get stuck.
Right.
It's 750 to $1 million, because that's the point that you need leadership structure. That's the point where you can't have a flat culture. What I mean by flat culture, you have one boss that everybody reports to. Nobody's getting anything done. Because you don't have any time to do anything because you got 15 people reporting to you, and they don't feel like they get enough time with you. You need processes, procedures, agency intranet, all that stuff.
Sure.
And most
it's
people...
the 2X. Yeah, it's the 2X versus 10X thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you double? You sell twice as much, right?
Yeah.
But to go to 10X, you cannot do that. At some point, you cap out. You have to think differently. And Scott, I'm with you. I think guys like Bradley and Jason, like, there's something in them. They think that way before it ever starts, right? I tell Dad that all the time. I'm like, hey, I could never have started this agency. Like, that is not my skill. I do not have that. But I walked into the foundation already built, and it's been pretty easy from there because he did so much hard work to lay the foundation in a great way.
Okay, go ahead.
How many locations you guys have?
So I was telling you earlier, we have some new people coming on today. As of right now, we're about 63, 64.
20 new employees starting today. 64. So what got you to those locations? Is the model, are you guys just opening an office?
Did you say 20 new employees starting today?
Today.
That's like 20 new desktop laptops, 20 things of
plus
swag.
2 other monitors, plus printer. 20.
I was telling him before you got in the room, before he came on the air, that one of the best things I've done is completely take me out of new employee orientation and have people handle that are good at it, because I'm at my most stressed, Jackson, when we have new employees starting, because I feel so responsible for their success. And if I put somebody else responsible for it, it just makes me, I'm a better leader if I do that. But what's the model? So are you guys opening offices in towns that you see like could be a good market, or are they acquisitions? What's the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, it's both. Again, I give my dad credit. Like, I think in the history of the agency, we've been 25 years. I think we've done something like 30 acquisitions over time. I mean, pretty much anywhere that he went in and was an agent, at some point he bought the other ones there because he was better than them and built up that way. But he's also very relational, right? And they got to know him really, really well. So we do a lot of acquisitions. We actually did 2 of them on 1-1. We'll have a couple more coming up here pretty quick. But
what's the radius around Texas? College Station? Are y'all staying in Texas, or is there agencies in Iowa and Nebraska?
Yeah, we have offices in Utah, New Mexico, Georgia, Missouri.
Okay.
So we started expanding out in 2021, and just kind of looking around, which I would say this was probably the worst time to do that, because then the market hardened and everyone got real picky
Also,
about, your office is in Texas, I don't know about you
the
having offices
multiples
over
are
there.
high too in 2021.
Yeah, but I mean, we take everything. I read a quote today, as pessimists will basically complain about the wind, optimists will hope that it will change, and leadership adjusts the sails, right?
Wow.
So I think we've done a good job of adjusting the sails no matter really what problem have come at us. But yeah, we want to be local. That's our specialty. I tell people all the time, I love it when people ask me, hey, what's your specialty or your niche? Because everyone's so big on this concept of, having a niche. And it's like the only right answer is construction or something like that. I love it, because as soon as they ask me that, I say, hey, we don't specialize in industries. I leave that to other people. We're going to specialize in people, and we're local. That's our strategy. We find people in local communities, and we let them specialize in their communities. They go to church with these people. Their kids play sports with them.
Sure.
They don't know me, and I jokingly tell my producer all the time, like, if I walk into a town and people know me, you're getting fired, because that's not their job. Their job's to know you, because you're the one they got to trust. You're the one who, when their roof blows off, should be over there with a tarp. Like that. That's the attitude that we want to have. The same thing that my dad did for 20 years, building this thing up and selling policies with a ladder in the back of his truck and one of those old cameras that you got to get the film made to send to underwriters. Like, I remember those things as a kid, and we want to have that same approach, old school approach, new school tactics. That's kind of our strategy.
What's your deal structure when you guys buy one? I can nerd out on acquisitions all day long. Are you guys doing?
I was about to ask him that.
Are you guys doing upfront earn out, ghost equity? What's the typical structure? And every deal may look different.
And can I add to his question and say, my question was in the same vein, but it was going to be, when you find an agency that you want to acquire or merge with, whatever, like, what's your sweet spot in terms of the size, premium, mixture of business?
Yeah, answer to the deal structure is all of the above. My dad will tell you this. He's like, he tries to make a deal work no matter what, right? So kills our operations people a little bit. Me too. I have a little bit of that brain. So I'm like, what did you just, agree to? But we'll do it all. We'll do it all kind of ways. I mean, at the end of the day, it's got to make sense, right? It's got to, I know me and you both talked to Carrie about this before. It's like, it's got a cash flow. If it does that, we're good. But then outside of that, in terms of like the size, we want to bring people in who look like what we're going to make them look like at the end of the day anyways. We want them to be local. We want them to have roots in a community. We want the community to know them and love them. And that's the deal. I mean, we buy them with paper, with management systems, with processes, no processes, one carrier, thousands of carriers, like all of the above. It doesn't, that doesn't matter to us. Like we can fix that. What we cannot fix is the people in that office. And are they going to fit within our structure and our culture? And are they going to want to challenge themselves? That's a big thing about we call them Rollo rules. They're our core values. And number 5 is probably my favorite one. And it's the answer is never, because we've always done it that way. I hate that answer. It's not acceptable around here. And so as long as they have an attitude of, we're going to figure the right thing out because that's the way we need to do it, then we're willing to entertain the deal all the time.
We've got one we're closing on 3/1, and it's going to cash flow really well. But the thing I'm most excited about are the 2 producers that are hopefully going to come with it.
Yep.
I got a question, Jackson. I got 2 questions. Number 1, how many core values do you have, and what are they? I'd like to hear them, 1 through however many. Usually most agencies have.
We got 12.
Oh, so. Wow. 12. That's a lot. That's,
okay, so here's the thing, right? Texas A&M, 12th man, right? And then also, a big, biblical base. So you got the 12 commandments kind of thing. So and my dad's weird. It's like everything comes in 7s or 12s. Like we could build a process with 6 steps, and he's like, build me a 7th one. It kills me. I hate it. But it's part of it. I would say like it starts with number 1.
I just want a 7th one just because.
Yeah, just because. So we build that now and make it optional.
What's your of the 12, what's your top 3 core values? I won't make you say all of them.
It changes based on the day. I'll tell you that, because it's based on my perspective of things. It starts with number 1 for us, which is God is good and you should be too. At the end of the day, we want people here because they understand that there's more important things in life than work. And if you're here because of that reason, we're going to be very successful together, because when we're here, rule number 10 applies, which is participation trophies aren't allowed. We're here to win. So we're about winning. But then the one that probably applies to me most in my role as president is number 4, which is perfection is impossible. Dream it, chase it. So at the end of the day, I know we're not ever going to be a perfect organization. I tell that to everybody we interview and recruit. I'm like, look, you're not walking into a perfect organization. Never will be. But that does not mean we're unwilling to dream what that would look like and chase after it. And then once we get to whatever that is and realize, hey, this isn't perfect, we can make it better. We'll dream about that and chase after that too.
So getting back to these purchases that you guys do you have an ops person that once you buy an agency, let's say Georgia, I'm just throwing that name out there. It could have been any state, but let's say Georgia. Do you have an ops person that you send out to that agency for like 2 weeks to do a on-site analysis of that particular agency to determine like what tweaks you need to make and who stays and who goes?
They're probably in charge of seeing that through as well too.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. We got a team. We got a couple of different people for that. We got the way it's split up for us is we have 2 people on our C-suite group who oversee operations. We have it split in 2 different areas. But one of them is specifically in charge of acquisitions and we'll oversee all of that for us.
And how are they compensated? Are they bonused if the acquisition goes well?
Yeah, so everybody's kind of it's a little bit different across the board, but for the leadership team, we make it to where everyone wins when we win. So it's kind of built into everyone, because it's not just one person that has a role to play in that, Bradley. Like we have a technology person who's in charge of it. I mean, I'm in charge of it. I better make sure the deal's structured sound on the front end. The finance person's in charge of making sure. I mean, because if we stop paying rent, guess what? We're not going to have an office anymore. Now we got problems. So everyone is everyone is committed to what we're doing together and building what we're building together.
We had a deal last month that came across my desk. It was the agency was cash flowing about $600K net profit. And if I financed it, it would have cost me $700,000 a year in debt based on what they were asking.
Wow.
And I was just like, and I told the person, I was like, look, you're going to be able to find a sucker to do this that just really wants to buy a nice size agency, but like
it ain't me.
It just doesn't work. And that's where you can get yourself in trouble, where you're cutting it a little too close to the sun, or if it's maybe a large, I'm more keen on buying a book that's a lot of personal lines than a lot of commercial, because it takes you have to screw up really bad for many years to lose enough business on a personal lines book. You don't have to screw up that bad to lose a bunch of business on a commercial book,
especially if you got some big accounts.
Yeah.
Yep. So I got a question for you and Bradley both. Back in the 80s and 90s, independent agencies were selling on average, and I'm not going to get into the EBITDA stuff. Let's just leave that on the table for a minute. But just the average agency, if you put a gun to somebody's head that was an agency owner that was retiring and selling, was about 2.5 times, 2 to 2.5 times. That was kind of the number that people talked about, right? Today, here we are, January of 2025, year of our Lord. You find a good agency, it's got maybe a 60-40 commercial personal line split, well run, good shop, good people, $10 million in premium, maybe 10 to 20 million in premium. What are we looking at? And they've got a good management system, good group there. What are we looking at buying something like? Is it still 2.5, or is it 3, or is it 2? Is it 1.5? What is it? What would a good shop go for?
I can answer.
And I'm leaving out the EBITDA stuff. I don't want to get into all that.
I go by EBITDA. So sorry to disappoint you.
Okay.
But so what I do is I get the very first thing I do is I get the P&L. I like year to date, and I like trailing 12. I can kind of get a sense of, where are we at the last, and obviously years past too. You want to make sure. The only thing I really use like 3 years past is like, okay, let's make sure it hasn't gone down a bunch, right? But the main 2 are trailing 12 year to date. And you'd be surprised. I had one guy, and I was like, all right, I need a year to date P&L. And I need trailing 12, and I need a balance sheet. And he's like, yeah, I don't have any of that shit, but I want 5 times revenue. And I'm like, bro, exact words, by the way.
Yeah.
So I get that. The very first thing I do is I go through there and I redline.
All the stuff you take out.
It is my absolute favorite thing in the world to do is to get
Disney World.
Get somebody's P&L and go. And I redline all of the things I don't need. So
Right.
like I already have an AMS.
Well,
I don't need their AMS.
Like, it'll be doubled up.
And we're a
yeah.
lot of like a lot of big firms, like I think Acrisure, when they buy one, they let them stay on their AMS. We don't do that. I think that causes more issues down the road.
Yeah.
So I don't need an AMS. I don't need a phone system. I don't need a CRM. I don't need a bookkeeper. I don't need all the, we cut all that out. Are all the employees going to come over? We think, cut all the expenses out. And then I get to my adjusted EBITDA. And now I don't pay. I tell people this up front, like to the person I'm closing on 3-1. I told her, I said, look, I'm probably not going to pay as much as you could get for this. You could go sell to a PCF or a Hub,
right,
or one of these big firms. But if you want your agency to still have a soul, you sell to me and your people to be taken care of.
There's your pitch.
I'm not going to pay as much, but you're going to feel really confident in your decision.
Sure.
And in fact, this agency, the agency name, we are going to make one of our core values to keep that name alive. And so anyway, so my baseline is 70% of 5.5 times EBITDA.
Okay.
That's my baseline. Once I get to that adjusted EBITDA, 70% of 5.5. The reason why is I can get the financing on that very, 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 very easy.
Okay.
The bank that I use can close it in 2 weeks if they need to. And then that's my baseline. Where are we at in relation to that? Are we high or are we low? If we're high, but it's still going to cash flow, then I know, okay,
we're good.
I'm going to have to really sell this to the bank and maybe even get Carrie to come in and do a valuation. If we're low, it's like, okay, I'm going to make the offer today. My goal is to get to LOI as fast as possible. My payment, if you take your purchase amount minus any cash down and multiply that times 0.144, that's roughly what your payment's going to be. That's just the way it works out. 144 doesn't mean anything. That's just a quick way to figure out. I do all mine on a 10-year note, so it paid off 10 years. I say all that to say, most of the time, it comes back to 2.5 times revenue. Most of the time, that's about what that comes back to.
That's kind of where I was wanting to go. I'm glad you did that. Yeah, because somebody else told me that too. Somebody else said to me, they kind of went through what you just did, and then at the end they said exactly what you did. They said, you go through all this EBITDA stuff, blah 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 blah, this and that. And most of the time, it comes back to about 2.5 times revenue.
Here's what gets funny though, and I'd love to get Jackson's thoughts on this. Is my favorite deal structure is? So can you go a little longer, by the way? Are you good?
Oh, yeah, we're good.
My favorite deal structure is, so when you see and I don't doubt there's some agencies that have sold to big firms that got like 5 times up front, right? Revenue.
Yep.
And you see these like, Cadence Insurance sold to Gallagher and it was 5 times revenue is what it was. Cadence Insurance was like $1 billion in revenue, right? So I'm like, I tweeted out when that happened, I was like, okay, your $200,000 revenue agency is not worth 4 times if Cadence at $1 billion in revenue sold for 5 times, right?
Sure.
But most of the time what happens is that number that's advertised out there, that multiple, is not the upfront multiple. The upfront multiple is somewhere around 2 times. And so this is my favorite deal structure.
But why is that? Why wouldn't they publish that?
Because they want to advertise that they bought this agency for 5 times. That way other people come to them and say, hey, this guy sold for 5 times. So the math isn't going to make sense because I don't have a whiteboard in front of me. But my favorite deal structure is...
Oh, Randy and I get you whiteboard.
My favorite deal structure is, okay, I'm going to give you 2 times up front. Let's say the person wants 4. I'm going to give you 2 times up front, and you're going to do a 2 to 3 year earnout. And then if you hit this amount of revenue in terms of sales, I'm going to give you the other 2 times. But what happens is, after they add that revenue, it ends up being like 2.5 times because you've added extra revenue. You see what I'm getting at? Like that's where these firms get tricky. Yeah, we'll pay you 5 times, but you got to add $1 million in revenue in your 3 year earnout, and all of a sudden they're actually not paying that much.
Right, Jackson. Do you agree with what Bradley's saying right now, or do you have a different take on it?
No, I mean, I think at the end of the day, and I love talking to Kara about this too, because she's so smart at what she does. But at the end of the day, there's only a certain amount of ways you can run an insurance agency, right? In an office and make money. And so I try to boil it down to that because, again, most of the time, the people that we're talking to don't understand what a C-suite is. So if I expect them to necessarily understand EBITDA, P&L, like that's stuff we do on our side to make sure we're right. But to them, I want to explain to them more like what Bradley was saying. What's going to happen after you leave? Because here's the thing. You're still going to go shopping. Like we have HEB in Texas, right? It's the biggest benefit of Texas. You're going to be in HEB still and see the people that were your clients.
What's HEB? I don't know what that is.
Are you serious? You gotta look it up. It's the best grocery chain. It's only a Texas thing right now.
I'm sorry.
It's solid.
It's kind of like
it's solid.
Like the
Buc-ee's.
Of
we didn't know what Buc-ee's was.
So,
now we got Buc-ee's everywhere in Alabama.
Right. So it's kind of like that, but a grocery store version. But no,
Gotcha.
I mean, you're still going to see these people who are your clients at the grocery store because a lot of times the people that are leaving aren't leaving the town; they're just leaving the agency.
Right.
And so they need to have confidence that their people are going to be taken care of, their clients are going to be taken care of. Because last thing they want to do is, hey, they shut the office down. They made me call a call center, right? And so there's a reason why you work with certain people when you're getting out. And here's my take on the multiples coming 2025. A lot of people think they have been growing for the last year or two. They have not. Their revenue has been growing because carriers are taking large rate.
Correct.
They're going to wake up in about 2 months and realize that they don't have a plan and they're losing money like crazy. And so I think, whatever the number is right now, discount it because that's about to be the fire sale that's probably happening in the industry.
So,
and
no doubt.
The only thing that might help that is if interest rates go down a good amount. That could offset some of that, but you're absolutely right. And that's why when we track like retention in our agency, we do policy count because revenue. It's funny because like revenue retention is probably the more important one, but it's a liar because your revenue retention is probably always going to be greater than 100% if you're doing a good job.
You can't control premium revenue in your agency.
Yeah,
not to the exact number because the carriers change it too much annually. You can control policy though.
Yeah. So Bradley, you've done this a couple times. I want you to do it one more time for our agents. Then I got a couple more questions for Jackson. What is that algorithm you use for policy retention? You've told it on here before, but I want to hear it again.
So if you ask 30 agents how they track retention, you're going to get 30 different answers.
True.
How we do it, I actually got this directly from Matt Namoli, is we take the policy count in force this month, subtract everything new that was written, and then weigh that against policy count in force from the same month year before.
Okay. Year before. Gotcha.
Same month year before.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to look at January. Okay, we have 10,000 policies in force. January, or so let's say 9,000 policies in force. January last year we had 10,000. It's 90% retention.
Gotcha.
Taking the new business out. It's new business shouldn't count. That's how we do it.
But you take the new business out for that current month.
Current month.
Yeah,
correct, Correct.
Okay. So why wouldn't you why wouldn't you do it by end policy count of the previous month?
I don't understand the question.
Because, if you're...
that's what I mean, previous month, yeah.
Okay.
So in January, we're looking at December.
Correct, for the current year.
Yeah.
And then, but you're looking at December...
For the year before.
Of 24, yeah. Yeah, right, it's a weird month in January.
And we actually, in our leadership meetings, look at both. We look at revenue and policy count, but policy count really, to me, is the most accurate retention. And there's no AMS on the planet that accurately calculates retention.
No.
None of them can do it. They do all this crazy stuff and this stuff to be excited about, and we rebranded and but none of them can count retention.
Jackson, I got a couple more questions for you. Okay, question number 1. You started with an agency. Y'all were around 100 employees. Now you've topped over the 200 employee mark. What has been the most important hire or group of hires that you've done from a management level to help you get to that next level? Because earlier in the podcast, Bradley said something that is absolutely true. And I think my agency's this way. We've kind of plateaued. We've kind of got to this level and we've plateaued. And the reason I'm asking this, I guess first question would be, what was the hire, whether it was the ops people or what was it that you hired that you feel like kind of helped push you guys up to the next level?
I don't think I can pinpoint one. We have hired our COOs, been with us a year and a half. My dad had
where did
most
they
of the
come from?
C-level members here.
Where
He
did
was
the
a 20,
COO
27
come from?
years military. Yeah, lieutenant colonel in the military.
Didn't really know insurance that well, but just knew operations.
Correct. Yep. New operations and knew us. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is when we hire people for key positions like that, we need to know them and trust them.
Yes.
That's something I picked up from my dad. I think it's a great point. You got it. Like, you can't build on loyalty. You can build skills, but you can't build loyalty, right? Loyalty, people are either loyal or they're not. And so I don't necessarily think it's a specific hire, Scott, but to answer your question, I'll say it this way. I think everyone we hire fits our culture, and therefore they adapt to be whatever we need them to be for us to be successful, because they understand the end result of where we're going. And so we've had people transition from IT to onboarding. We've had them transition from claims to operations. We've had them transition from agent to account manager to, personal lines, like just the generic department. We look for good people. We can place them in the right position, when we get them in here. I'm looking for good people, and I cannot point one out, because I think we've had, I don't know how many people, 125 different people. We've had 125 hires that way since I've been in this position. It's a constant adding good people, and they find their spot eventually where they need to be, and then they crush it there.
So let me ask you a question, a really weird question. If I was going to hire a C-suite executive from a carrier who was an attorney, a staff attorney, where do you think they would fit the best in your agency?
And you're not going to use them as an attorney?
I'm probably sure I would, to some degree, to review policy language and that kind of thing. Would they?
I'll be honest with you. I would need to meet them, right, to place them, because I'll tell you this: I don't do resumes. Like, that's the big thing about me. I don't care about your resume. If you saw my resume, you'd see a 27-year-old who's had one job in his life, who graduated the English degree, right? Like, tell me that's not that impressive. So I don't care about resumes. I want to get to know people. But I would say if they're an attorney, they're probably pretty good at detail. And so I would say you probably want to look at something like operations, because that's probably going to be somewhere that they can be, maybe even the financial side of the business, because a lot of time legal and finance overlap. I'll be honest with you, I don't know what that person could do for you right now to help grow revenue. Right. But if you're setting a foundation to do something down the line, then it could be probably a pretty talented person.
Bill collecting.
What about, exactly. What about accounting? What about accounting? Do you guys now have your own in-house accountant, bookkeepers that are managing we've done that from day one of the business?
Yeah, so we've done that from day one. My mom, back in the day when my dad was the janitor, agent, and account manager, my mom took over as the CFO back then, or the accounting.
Is she still
she's
doing
done that? She did it up until last year, and now she just does a lot of stuff with acquisitions for us. And so she's fabulous. But I got two sisters in high school, so she's enjoying their final years of high school. And we got another guy who's been with us for over 10 years. That's our CFO now.
So last question I'm gonna ask, and then Bradley may have one he can think of before we go. I've been sitting here for the past hour thinking about you and your dad and what you guys have been able to build and what you're continuing to build. And the one thing that keeps popping, kind of firing in my mind, is you guys have now built a agency that you are 1 billion% on Hub, Marsh, Gallagher's. Y'all are on the radar. Your agency would be one that if they were sitting in a leadership meeting, they'd be like, hey, this damn Rollo bunch down in Texas, boys, we need to get a hold of that. Have those discussions been had? Or is it a situation where your dad, Jason, every time he picks up the phone, he just hangs up on somebody when they call to tell them that they are the new business vice president of, acquisition for Hub? Click.
No, it's definitely number two. I would say this, I love this about us. I'm not saying it's wrong to build something to sell. I think that depends on you and what you're looking to do, right? We're not doing that. I'm 27. My dad's 50. My favorite joke, and I told this one, I was probably only here a year. We had a wholesale rep come in, and he asked if I knew one of the large agencies, right? Like one of the ones you just mentioned. And I messed with him, and he said, hey, do you know them? They might be interested in acquiring you. I was like, or he said, they're in acquisition mode. And I just looked at him. I said, "Man, I've never heard of them before, but if you know somebody over there and they're willing to sell, give them my number."
Oh,
And
that's great.
his jaw hit the floor, right? And I was like, "No, of course I know who that is, but that's not us, right?" And it's funny because we've had people reach out in the last couple of weeks, and one of our big competitors here sold, and
I bet y'all are all over some. Even that Higginbotham bunch down there in Texas, they're buying agencies in Alabama like they're buying ice cream cones.
Taking pictures. On the rooftop.
Yeah, they're good company, but man, that's not us. We want to build something special. We want to build something that's a legacy.
Here's my thing. Okay, here's the thing. All right, so I'm so far from selling, and I agree with Jackson. I don't think there's anything wrong with building something to sell. Now,
I thought every business was built to be sold at some point.
I think if you build it to sell, only to sell, like that is your goal, at some point you're going to have blinders on and some bad things are going to trickle down to your customers.
Yep.
But let's do some math, okay? I was actually thinking about this the other day. So let's pretend that you could sell your agency for $50 million, okay? 50 million cash, and you're not 60-something years old. Let's say you're in your 50s or 40s, all right? That's probably going to be, and I'm making this up, around 12 times EBITDA or so is what that multiple is going to be at that revenue point. So that means your EBITDA, and let's pretend for a minute that EBITDA is net profit. Your net profit's going to be around $4 million. And you've had enough. Pay somebody $1 million a year to not call you with any problems, and that leaves you $3 million left over. I'm not great at math, but $3 million over 12 years is about $50 million. You know what I mean?
Time value of money.
It's I don't, like, I understand people that sell. Obviously, I'm buying, but like I think for me, and I think for Jackson too, like, I would just rather do that and still own it and have it be a part of like a holdco. And hey, that's just one thing that I own. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's not to say that I haven't had those days where I'm like, okay, I've about had enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Or eat a bad piece of pizza.
Scott, where's that number for that truck driving school?
Yeah, and that's not to say that if somebody threw a big number at me, I wouldn't say yes. You know, but the thing is, it's like, how old are you?
27.
27. Like, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Like, you can only fish so much. You can only golf so much. You can, and do you really want to walk away from a business that's doing, you know, probably tens of millions of dollars a year in revenue to do a startup? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that's
and here's the thing to me too. I was a big basketball guy, right? And unfortunately, God didn't bless me with the athleticism needed to play at the highest Division I levels. But I was competitive, as it gets. And I don't know. The way I look at it is, look, we have one of two options. We can either build and sell, which is what 99% of people do, or we could be that 1% who builds something that the buyers end up being, right? And that's special. And the thing about it is the people that work with us, like you said, what else are we going to do, right? We're having so much fun. We have a family business, complete. My brother's in it, my sister-in-law's in it, my wife was in it until we had our kids. Like, it's literally a family business, and it extends beyond just our family now. We're having fun. Why in the world will we change?
Yeah.
Hey, Jackson, last question. Do you guys, have y'all got to this point now where you started an ESOP? Is it employed sponsored ownership program?
Nope. No, it is completely family owned. No private equity, nothing. Just completely family owned.
Okay. Yep. I just didn't know. I didn't know if y'all had gone down that road or not. Okay. Well, guys, I think that was probably a good end of this podcast. I'm so excited for you and your family and what you guys have been able to build there. It's truly inspirational to be on this show with you today. It, to some degree, gives me some hope, I guess. I know it's not without warts. It's not without days when it's not all sunshine and rainbows and unicorns, but overall, it sounds like a great place to be, and I'm proud of you. I desperately want to interview your dad. I think he and I'd have a lot of fun together, and I cannot wait till the next Paradiso Mastermind, because when I walk in, I'm gonna say, "Well, I know who that is right there." That's it.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you're welcome. Guys, as I end every episode, rewards come from action, not discussion. Get your ass out from behind that desk today. Go out into the big bad world. Make money for your family, for your wife, for your husband, for your kids' college fund, and for your parents and in-laws like mine that are struggling out there. Go make money for them. Write good business for the agencies that you represent, and write good business for the carriers that you represent. Bradley Flowers, I love you.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Jackson.
Thank you, Jackson. We love you. If you need me, I'm a phone call away, but I don't think you do. In fact, I probably need you a lot more than you need me. But
I don't know about that. Well, I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you for being on here. And guys, you were listening to the Insurance Guys podcast. We love each and every one of you. Thank you so much for being a part of our family. And we'll see you back here real soon. Take care.